everyone. Thank you so much for being here on this webinar. Today I have some very big things to show you. What we did, we made a ton of optimizations, some of which are in DNN code. Others are in our modules, and also we've done some optimization on the setup overall. And I will show all of this today, along with some performance testing and some analysis that we did to determine which of these optimizations actually are worth doing. So let's get started. The first thing that I want to introduce to you is all the methodologies that we use to achieve this these performance optimizations. First of all, we did load testing with Visual Studio, and we did basic testing. We only tested for single pages, so it's not we didn't test like real life scenarios. But I think for the purpose of measuring performance, they are very relevant. The results are relevant. And also we tried to do simultaneous testing from multiple machines to see how that affects, and to exclude the possibility that one machine would actually be the bottleneck. One testing machine would be the bottleneck. And this helped us measure the performance of the machines, to measure which machines perform faster and which perform slower. And we tested a variety of machines from Amazon and from Azure, and I will show you that in a bit. Next thing that we did, we also tested from a marketing perspective. We tested with Google PageSpeed. Yes. So one thing that I want to point out from the start is that the DNN instances, the new DNN instances that you put on your site, would behave very randomly with Google PageSpeed. Like the results can vary by 40 to 60% from one test to another with Google PageSpeed. So for those random results, we only recorded the maximum values. But for the instance that we ultimately got to, we made some changes in IIS and also in DNN to make it behave reliable. Next thing that we did a lot of performance analysis using the Visual Studio tools, and we found the bottlenecks that are in DNN code and also in our modules. And I will show you two of those optimizations that we did, and also give you a bit of perspective how we eliminated other class of performance issues that we arrived to. And we basically just replaced those DNN components instead of trying to optimize them. And of course, we have a lot of secret sources that made all of this possible. So let's move on to the Azure versus Amazon performance. We tried, actually my idea from a few weeks ago was to create the smallest instance possible and see how it performs. And the results were fantastic with the Amazon EC2 micro instance, which is the cheapest you can buy. If you pay by the hour, it will cost you like $30 per month. And if you buy with a contract, then it will go to maybe 8 if you buy with 3 years contract. So it's very, very cheap, and the performances are actually very good. And this is just testing with a clean DNN install. So far we haven't applied all those DNN optimizations that I told you about. So I tried to put this into perspective to see if this 40 pages per second is a lot or not. And of course, I started measuring DNNsoftware.com website, and I got 8 pages per second. And of course, it's a big difference because the site that I tested was like a clean DNN instance, didn't have any production content, any modules on it. It was just a clean instance. While DNNsoftware.com probably has a lot of modules, content, and so on. But still, the difference is amazing. And then I tried to get on Azure and make this make a small instance that would compete with this Amazon EC2 instance. Yes. So I tried all kinds of machines. We set up a free website, which oddly gives us 80 pages per second, but it's actually 80 pages of website not available, because it appears that the free website has a limitation of how many pages you can serve. So the test is not relevant. But then we tried the Azure standard with a small instance, and we got 13 pages per second with a new instance. And this instance would cost like $74 per month. And we also tried the smallest virtual machine that we can get on Azure, which is a basic A0 machine. And I think that performed very poorly. We got 1 page per second. I can't figure if maybe there was something blocking, like a firewall maybe blocking the requests, or perhaps the large amount, because we put 100 users, perhaps the large amount of users killed the machine. So actually, before I go any further, I would like to show you this some of these results. So what I got here, for example, let's take the DNN website first. So this would be the DNN software, the DNNsoftware.com website. And here we got an average of 7 pages per second. And this, we noticed that this varies. Sometimes we got 4, but sometimes we got 13, 14. But usually the average would be around 8. And then this is the free instance that I told you that we got 70 to 80 pages per second, but it was just blue pages with, sorry, the website is not available, so they are not relevant. Let me show you other Amazon instances that we tried. We tried, this is the standard instance. So here we got 20 pages per second, a maximum, and average 13 pages. And all these instances we actually have online right now. So theoretically, you could go and visit them. For example, let's go to this is the virtual machine, and this would be the standard machine from Azure. So they are just clean websites, and I think this would be the most common that you'd use in production. You'd use a $74 machine to host websites. Now, it depends how many websites you'd host on this machine, but still, if you get 13 pages per second, I doubt that you can host a lot. Okay. So I think we clearly can see that Amazon is a far better choice than Azure. And I tried to put together the arguments that that I got from other members of the community, because I raised this subject. And the arguments that I've got is that Azure is a better fit for MS technologies. But I think if it offers lower performances, then maybe it's not such a better fit after all. I mean, for the same amount of money, if it's a better fit, it should provide better performance, I think. And then we got the argument that it's growing at a faster rate than Amazon. This might be true, but still, Amazon is bigger than all other cloud providers combined. And I think this means a lot. And also we got the argument that Azure has new services coming out every day. But I think this is nice for us, for developers, because new technologies is new toys that we can play with. But from a business perspective, I would not invest in a new technology until it has proven itself. Or at least I would do performance analysis first, which will get me to these results. Yeah. And then we got this argument that is very low cost and almost free, and I actually heard this argument. And I think if you look at these numbers here, it's far from true. It's far from true. You can get much cheaper and far better performances with an Amazon EC2 micro instance. Okay, before I go any further, let me check if there are any questions. One question is if the micro instance has had a SQL Express. It had something better than SQL Express. It had local DB. So I did this a few minor changes in DNN to support local DB. I think I've already submitted this pull request a few weeks ago on DNN. I don't know if it's merged yet, but we actually got local DB on that micro instance, which is much lighter than SQL Express. And maybe I will get to that to show you that a bit later. Okay, so let's proceed. So I think the conclusion of this first part of my presentation is that we all need to take a fresh look at Amazon, because the performance that it offers is far superior to Azure. Somehow I always suspected that, because I've used both for a few years, and I've always suspected that, but I never had real numbers to back that up. And also, when I would get into an argument with somebody about this subject, nobody had real numbers to argue. It's all personal opinions. So now I have some real numbers. And I'm not saying that they're 100% accurate, but I think the margin for error, it wouldn't account for the difference that I had. Okay, so I think we need to support this officially. We need to support Amazon officially, have providers officially. I think we should extend this support, because it's a pity. The second part of my presentation is about the optimizations that we did to DNN. And this was actually a lot of things happening at once, because my mission was to separate the core from the UI. That's what I wanted to do. That's what I presented in Italy 6 months ago. That's what I presented in Florida 1 month ago. To separate the core from the UI, so we make a much faster DNN this way. But what happened at the same time I was doing this? One client came to support and asked, and he's actually on the call, and I want to thank him. And he actually said, you know, action form is a bit slow. Can you take a look at that? And I had on my list to play with this Visual Studio profiling tools. And I did that, and while I was testing action form, I said, why not use it on my work on separating the core? And then I noticed some big things here and there. And that's how it started, and for the last 3 weeks we applied many optimizations to the DNN, and I've already submitted 1 or 2. We have a lot of more that we need to make pull requests, Git, Jira tickets, and so on. And others we just implemented in our modules, or we just eliminated. And I will take this one at a time, and I will show you one of the 2 fixes that we did and the big difference that they made. So they were actually very minor things that we couldn't have got to without the profiling tools. So one of these is this function that check if doc type config exists. And I actually have it open here. So what this function does in tab info, it's located in tab info, it tries to default to another doc type if the file doesn't exist on disk. But this code is something that we added. Without this code, without all this code, it would check the disk for every page load. So for every page load, if you don't have a doc type defined in the page, it will check the disk if there is a doc type for that skin, and if it exists, load that. So for every page load, would do that. And the most expensive operations in a website is touching the disk or touching the database. So what we did here, we just did a caching. We did a simple dictionary where we cached this doc type. It's not the best solution, but it's something, a quick fix that we did here. And I think it's not the best solution because particularly this change doesn't catch if the file system changes. So you'd have to restart the website if you put a doc type file next to the skin while the website is running. So that's one of the problems. And another problem is that this feels like we are writing too much code for a small problem. Probably the better solution here would be just to transfer, I don't know, the doc type to have it, I don't know, in the database, or I don't know. I mean, there are many solutions that we can apply. And I think this one is not committed yet, but the other one that I want to present to you is in the Client Resource Manager. Client Resource Manager is a big consumer of resources in DNN. It takes up about 20–30% of a page load. And what this file exist function does, for every CSS file, it looks if it exists on disk. So imagine if you load a page that has 20 CSS files, this function will touch the disk 20 times to check every file if it exists. And again, we added this locking code and a dictionary to cache either the file exists or not. But again, if you put the CSS files afterwards, this you'd have to restart the website. It will not pick up the changes. But still, we did a quick fix, and it improved. This function alone accounted for 8% of the loading time of a page. So this function. Other things that we did is we took a look at the components. So a lot of these issues that we find with the profiler were in the Client Resource Manager and in the Advanced URL Rewriter. The Advanced URL Rewriter is also a big consumer of resources. I can show you one test I have here. For example, this is a regular stack trace that you would get with the profiler. And this is from a clean DNN instance. So this, I haven't touched this, I haven't optimized it with anything. So if you start counting, for example, if you start counting the Client Resource Manager, so from 50,000 samples, we can see how much was in each function. So you see in the Client Resource Manager, we have 2,000, and then I think there's one more here, another 1,000. And then if you expand the stack trace, you can see 100, another 200, and here would be another 300 somewhere in the stack trace. So I think it goes to around 30%. And same goes with the URL rewriter. So you see here 2,000 samples only from the HTTP modules. And then you have to account for the URL provider that builds the URL. And those you could see in all modules. I don't know if I can find one now fast. Oh, you could see probably also in DDR menu, for example, this DDR menu, you see 1,000 cycles. So that's 1,000 from 50,000. Okay, and 1,000 cycles just getting probably the permission provider is another big problem. You see, so a lot of time spent in the permissions provider, but I can't find the URLs. Probably is not here. Anyway, so this is even more than Client Resource Manager. If you go through all these components and you count the time, it's even more. And then also we just removed this from our optimized instance. We just removed this 51 degrees mobile redirection. So this takes 1,000 cycles, and I'm not sure if it's used for anything. I don't think we used it explicitly, and removing it didn't break anything. So I think I assume that it does some adaptive redirections or something like that, based on mobiles, like going to a mobile version of the website. But all the websites that we did, or 99% of them, were just responsive. We haven't used that. So I think it's a lot that it takes so many cycles when we are not using it for anything. So these are just some few optimizations that we did. And for this, for the advanced URL rewriter, we just replace it with our URL adapter, and we heavily optimized it. So this is the fortunate case when we can just unplug the component and put another one there. But there are other places where this is very difficult to achieve because it's not implemented as a provider. And then what we have to do is make changes, create a Jira request and give them to DNN, make pull requests to DNN, or make some quick workarounds in our modules. And we did that. We did both, actually. We submitted a few to DNN, and others we package into a new project that will ship with Sharplook, and it will be a separate download called DNN optimization. But it's included with Sharplook, but you have to install it separately. So that's what I'm showing you here are just the big things that we find. And I think we only touch maybe less than 50% of what can be optimized in DNN on existing code base. So I think I think if many people would get involved, or if many developers would become aware of these performance issues, I think the whole situation would change. Like sometimes I get into arguments with some developers that maybe I point out that maybe that code is not efficient, and they just dismiss it. Maybe it doesn't matter that much, or just without numbers or without facts, they would just dismiss this because we developers tend to be defensive with our code. But I think Visual Studio provides some amazing tools to easily catch this sort of issues and fix them before even before release, before committing the code, even before committing the code. Let me see if that raised any. A lot of questions. Okay, I think I will go over the questions at the end because I see a lot of questions. Okay, so or maybe I'll go now because then there will be too many, and I'm sure there will be others. Okay. 51, no, I'm not. Okay, which optimization are not getting accepted so far? Asking Will Stroll. I think I only got 2 optimization there. I think I got one that got accepted on last minute in the next release, which was the one on checking every CSS file, which was a big one. We also have the local DB, but I don't think that was accepted yet. But I think that's a very valuable fix, and I only had to change like 2 lines. Mark asks, could you expand on what you saw was included with Sharplook? Is it the changes or a precompiled project? With Sharplook it's precompiled, so it will not be open source. It's not open source. So install Sharplook, and then you can install like an add-on. The add-on is called the DNN 7 optimizations. And what it does, it has some a new client resource manager, but that's just a light version derived from the standard resource manager, like provider, DNN file provider, stuff like that. And it only does a few optimization, like disables composite files. Checking for composite files, the client resource manager eats a lot of resources. And I mean, nobody should use composite files these days. I think that kind of changes we did, and it was easy just to get all of this put in an assembly than going through the route of submitting them to DNN community project, but which we want to do in time, but that's time consuming, and I usually don't find the time to do all those steps. Sergey, good idea is to do the same with SQL Profiler. You can find a lot of codes that repeat hundreds of times and not optimized. Yeah, I think we will get to more optimization, and we'll also get to the security, because we know a few things about security in DNN that I hope nobody knows. Yes, this webinar is recorded. Somebody asks that. So, okay, so let's move on, and I will get back to more questions in a bit. Let's see, where was I? Okay. Okay, so what we did, we put all of this together. Like, we replaced the URL rewriter with URL adapter, and we optimized that. We put sharp look, which replaces the whole administration UI, and we included these optimizations that I told you about. And then we put local DB, so we don't have SQL Server there. And we, for the other fixes that we haven't got to commit to DNN, and also we did not wait for a DNN release to deploy them, we build them in a custom DNN. And I can show you this machine. Let's see. So this is a T2 micro machine. It only has one website. I haven't done any testing to see how many websites it could carry. We installed local DB, and we set up to run as the administrator, as same user, because local DB is not like a service that would run like SQL Server. It's the same code base as SQL Server, so it's that executable, SQL Server.exe, and that gets run by the process that needs to access it. In this case, it gets executed by the worker process from IIS with the administrator user. And we had a bit of trouble getting this set up, so local DB is not as easy to set up as a SQL Server, because you have to make this the instance, the local DB instance, and the user that the application pool user need to have access to that local DB instance. So it's a bit more difficult to set up. But basically, what I did here is just put the administrator, probably not a good idea in a production website, and just load user profile that's needed, and that was it. For this instance, it worked. On my machine, I had to run as a network service and give that network service permissions in local DB, so it was a bit more complicated. So that's the local DB part. Local DB would just appear as a SQL server, running as a SQL server. It's not sure what else to tell you about it. The rest is just the website here. Nothing special. Let me show you the website though. So maybe I'll open it with Explorer. Okay. So this is the website. It's a public website. You can access it. It's called light.dnnsharp.com. And what I created here is a website with standard templates that come with sharp look. So here I have a nice menu, and then I have 3 pages all created from templates. And this template that I use for menu would also do like page navigation. So it's a template called single page menu, something like that. So it builds these links automatically from H2 links in the page, but it also puts the menu at the bottom so you can go to different pages. Yeah, and this also sharp look is a great optimization because it eliminates all the administration control. So this is basically my control panel. It's all AngularJS, JavaScript code, and it's also touch friendly if you're not already familiar with sharp look. And it's very, very fast, and also fast to like manage portals. So you have a lot of shortcuts, you have contextual search, and also it eliminates the need to go to the disk to change skin files. For example, in this layout mode, we can create layouts directly here. And by layouts, I mean panes. So we have a content pane, I can split it in 2. Now I have another pane. I can add another row here, add more panes. Yeah. So you can build all this layout from the admin UI, and basically you don't have to touch the disk. And our goal with Sharplook and with all these optimizations that we make is to make a really, really light DNN that can be used by people at large. Yeah? Because right now it's a niche product. And same in design mode, you can adjust the styles directly here, or you could also, it also supports less, so you can write more structured CSS code. And you can also upload files, GS files and CSS files directly from here. So again, we eliminate the need to having to use FTP to go to disk and all that stuff. Maybe we are not there 100% yet, but I think it's a huge improvement to what's available so far. And it's very, very fast because, especially maybe on the front end, you will not get that much of a feeling, because DNN, latest version of DNN are also very optimized for the front end. But as soon as you log in as an administrator or a host, you will notice the performance. Like this page would be almost the same speed if I am logged in as host or not. Yeah, so it's almost instant because most of the administration console loads after the page load, whereas the DNN standard would load. Will do a lot of server-side logic for the ASP controls. And maybe I can show you also the web config file. A few optimizations that we did. Yeah, so first thing we commented this mobile redirect, like I told you. And then, of course, you'll see the DNN sharp URL adapter for the URL rewriting. And the rest of the changes refer to the client resource manager. And the permissions, yes, I forgot to tell you. Like I told you, permissions are also a big problem in DNN. They are not properly cached. So we also implemented this caching provider that does a bit of the optimizations. And this also would be available with that Sharplook optimization project that I'm telling you about. Yes. So let's look more for the provider. Yeah, so here we have, I have put the Sharplook provider for the client resource manager. So they basically they disable composite files and do a bit of more this kind of small tweaks and optimizations. Okay, so let's see where were we. Let me look at the questions a bit. Somebody asks if the EC2 performance over Azure is due to a radically different architecture, tuple space, and associated risks. I have to admit I don't know the details, the hardware details. I'm just using these two services from a developer perspective. So I don't know how they are, the architecture, the internal architecture that they have. Yeah, I think it would be very interesting to find out why is such a big difference. Let's see other questions. Any potential porting effort surprises in moving a DNN instance between Azure and EC2 cloud platforms? I think not. I think the database, there is a project, an open source project to migrate from Azure to a SQL standard that has been used, is the standard for years, so you can easily migrate the database. And the files you just transfer. I'm not sure, I haven't looked at how if the DNN install on Azure website is different than a normal install, if it has like special providers or stuff like that. If it would have like particular provider, then I imagine that you would have to go in the web config and rewrite those providers, change them to the standard values. Randy asks, am I oversimplifying this, or did you indicate if you do a proper skin with one CSS file and a doc type, that will increase your load time 30 times because you're not checking the disk each page load? I think, no, I think the check happened in the tab info. So tab info apparently also has a property. Let me look at it. Tab info also has a property doc type. Let's see. This one loads from the disk. Let me check where this is called. Okay, so this has a property. Tab info has a property skin doc type, and if it has a skin, if the page has a skin, for example, then it will try to get it from the skin. If yeah, I'm not sure where this code would get called or stuff like that. We just profiled it and found the bottleneck in this function. So I'm not sure in which setup this would happen, but it happened on a clean install for us probably. Okay, let me see more questions. One question from Albert. Will DNN 7 optimization be available to Sharp clients? It will be available to Sharplook clients because it depends on some stuff from Sharplook. So Sharplook is not included in AppSharp, so it will be, if you have Sharplook, you'll get them. One other question from Richard, will Sharplook work with third-party modules? Yes, we already have a few working, and for others, I know we have some CSS configs here and there. We have to go and tweak them, especially for the most popular modules. And big questions. My questions are really about hosting on Amazon. How do you protect against a massive bill if there's a sudden surge in bandwidth usage? Last time I looked at this, they have a bandwidth calculator, but you need to know the bandwidth usage by continent. I certainly don't have this kind of information. And also, can you give any guidelines on how much memory is required? What additional responsibilities are there, things to do that this ISP company would normally do? I think I know for a fact that Amazon supports alerts, so you can put, if my bill goes over $100, send me an alert, and you can decide what to do. How much memory is required? I think usually, for example, this website with SharpLook and everything, if I'm not logged in, it will take like 70 megs of RAM. If I'm logged in as host, it will go to 100 megs. So I think for a simple website, that's decently. And in regard to what other responsibilities you'd have, I think you'd have to manage your own backups. I think Amazon provides services and stuff like that, but I think you still have to do some work. One thing that we will do, we will get this, I think sooner rather than later, we'll get this DNN Light machine. We'll get it out as a image on the Amazon marketplace. They have a marketplace for this. And what you can do, you will be able to purchase that image to create a instance from it, and it will be configured already to do the backups and all the common stuff, and it will already have the software installed, and the cost of the license will be included probably in the hourly cost. So instead of paying 1.8 cents per hour, the cost of machine will pay 1.8 plus something. That's the cost of the license. Okay, let's continue, and then I will get back to more questions. So that's basically our DNN Light instance. And I still have to show you some numbers. And I also put the DNN software here just as a reference to see the increase that we get. And also I put the machine that I showed you, the clean DNN install. I call it gray because it's between .dnnshard.com. This is the clean machine that I showed you at the beginning, the clean DNN install, also hosted on the micro EC2 instance. And on the right is the machine that I just showed you, the light DNN Sharp. And we got 62 pages per second on this machine. Yeah. So I can show you this. Let's take a look a bit. Not this one. This one. So let's take a look at the light machine. Okay. So this was basically the test. We got 62 pages per second on average. Let's see the other limits. So 42 probably during the warm period, and 72 at the most performance that we could get. So I think that's a huge improvement. And then what we did, like I told you in the beginning, we tested with Google PageSpeed, and we actually got some very nice results, and I think these are due to SharpLook. Yeah, the benefit of SharpLook. And we got DNNsoftware.com particularly performs very poor in PageRank, in page speed. Sorry, I don't know why is that. The clean DNN install will perform decently. It's 64, and the first number I didn't tell you. The first number is for the mobile version, and the second number is for the desktop version. So Google PageSpeed checks for both. So we can actually go and maybe run one of these on PageSpeed. So in one regard, DNN software behaves reliable with Google PageSpeed. It always gets around these numbers. While a clean DNN instance would get numbers that are very far off, like let's test the gray instance. So right now it got very poor number, 34 and 50. Yeah, so that's very, very poor. But if I refresh this a few times, at some point it will perform a lot better. Right now, actually Google doesn't reload it. That's why I get the same number. But let's also look at light.dnnshop.com. Yeah. So with Light, we also get reliable. Like almost every time we get this number, 67 and 89, which is extremely good. Yeah, this is extremely good for a website. There's still a lot of things that we can do to optimize, but it's very good. Let's see if we refresh this again, if we get better results this time. No, it's actually a bit better. So it's 40 with 77. It's a bit better. But that's what I'm saying. A clean instance is not reliable, so you'd have to do some settings in IIS and also maybe in DNN. I'm not sure. Maybe URL adapter also helps. Yeah. Okay. So these are the numbers here. I think it's still very far from where we want to be, because let's get to the next step. The actual, the bigger picture, yeah, and where we compare DNN to WordPress, and it's becoming more and more a reality, yeah, because now we have an older website that's hosted on WordPress.com, and we got like 65 pages per second, but also I suspect that we can get a lot more if we do more machines, because after all, WordPress.com is a SaaS, it's not one single machine. So I don't think that number is relevant. But on Google PageSpeed, if we get this website, it actually performs much worse than the DNN instance we optimized, which is very, very interesting. So this is actually our blog. We used to host it here on WordPress.com. In the meanwhile, we migrated it to our website, to a DNN module. But it's still live here. So let's look at the numbers. Yeah, they are about the same as I recorded earlier. So you can see our Light instance performs much better than WordPress. So that's already one for DNN. We still have to work a lot on the page speed, and I think we have the advantage of having a compiled programming language. So C# would be much faster than PHP. So I think this number looks very promising, and let me give you a bit of what's coming with everything that we are doing. I think first of all, it would be really great to get more popularity for our projects, because then we can do a lot of more interesting stuff. That would be really cool. And for this, we'll also make, like I mentioned earlier, we'll do this instance. We'll sell DNN Light as an image on the marketplace. So you can buy it and you have a machine. It costs $30 per month, and it's much faster than anything you can buy for that money. And then we have a lot of these optimizations to do. We only touch the surface of this topic, and we focused on those optimizations that were a few lines to code and did a huge impact. But if we were to optimize every piece of DNN, I think we could get much more performance out of it. We could get, I think realistically we could get we could get twice as fast as we are today with DNN, realistically. And then another things that we need to do, because the client resource manager is one of the big bottlenecks currently in DNN. So we will probably implement one of our own. I know that some people out there are already working on having a cloud enabled client resource manager, and I would really like to see that and use that. But I think if that doesn't happen in your future, we'll also implement one of our own, maybe a light version, just to eliminate all this load from the server. And finally, what I presented today, we plan to do something similar for security in DNN, because there are many things that can be secured in DNN. They are not necessarily big security holes, but if somebody knew how to exploit them, they could become. Yeah, like we are seeing now these registration issues that I've seen all over the place. Luckily, we didn't get those because we are using action form for registration on our side, so we didn't get those. But I see a lot of people got those. And I think it wasn't a big issue until somebody discovered how to exploit it. And I think there are many of those things that we can do an analysis and come with some solutions before they become a problem. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to show you, and I want to give you a big thank you for attending this webinar. And now I will go through more questions if there are any. Let's see. Daniel asks, performance is important, but what about DNN support at Amazon when things go wrong? I'm not sure what support you'd get from Azure if things go wrong. Yeah, that would be one issue. I think with Amazon it's very easy to make backups. You just go into the EC2 console and just create an image of that machine. If something goes wrong, just restore that machine. That's a simple thing that you can do for simple small websites. For bigger websites, you would probably need to implement backups, stuff like that, and you probably need to have somebody that knows at least the basics about working with IIS and stuff like that to connect to the server and do basic maintenance tasks. Ryan asks, will you be demoing any of the Shardlock functionality today, or is that in another webinar? I think we'll do another webinar. I've already presented it many times. I also showed it briefly to you today. There are also some videos on YouTube, and I think the purpose of the webinar today was how you could put all of this together to make a very fast, light DNN instance. Richard asked, we will have full access to the DB of the light version you are selling. I think local DB you cannot connect from outside DNN instance. So I think we'll also make an instance with SQL Server. And then yes, you could connect from outside with SQL Management Studio and perform management on the site. An anonymous person asks, Are you going to be maintaining a fork of DNN until the suggested changes are merged? If so, are you going to be putting it in Git or Codeplex? I'm not sure yet. So this is basically for the last few weeks was mostly work in progress. I don't want to start a new fork. So what I'm trying to do is get most of the fixes out of the DNN that we changed, get them as pull requests to DNN community, or get them as new providers or tweaks in SharpLook or other modules. So I don't think I will start a new fork. I think it's too much. It will be too much work. Another question, what volume of transaction will a little instance be able to handle? Well, like I showed you, it handles 40 requests per second, and it's a lot more than any big machine that I tested. Actually, not a big machine, depends. If you have a big machine, it will probably perform a lot better. But it will perform most of what you can get in the up to $100 and something range. And we actually also tried a bigger machine on EC2. We tried a medium machine, and it actually we couldn't get the CPU to go to 100% from all the machines that we had to test with. So I think you can run easily 150 requests per second. Richard asks, so the Light version would include the SharpLook modules, and we would pay per client rather than having a developer license. Yes, you'd actually not pay per client, you would pay per hour, per instance. So when you purchase an instance from Amazon, they will charge you a fee per hour. And to that fee per hour, it adds the cost of license. Okay, so I think that's it for today. I hope you liked this demo that we did today, and I hope that the real purpose of this webinar was to show you the powerful stuff that we are doing, to get you to support our projects, to promote them, to buy them, because the more popular they become, the more things we can do like that, and we have a lot of ideas. So thank you everyone for being here today. Bye.